3 uncommon ways to scale your business this year. If you watch till the end of this video, you will see exactly why this plan helped me scale my business to over 8 figures and how it will help you scale your business this year as well when you understand these 3 different components.
Peng Joon.
Peng Joon.
Peng Joon is here.
I want you to set your expectations high because I will massively exceed them. So these 3 components, if you could just double each of these different components, you would at least scale and increase and multiply your business by at least 8 times this year if you understood what these 3 things are. Now, the first method, the method that is common, that everyone is always thinking about. Most business owners, most entrepreneurs, they're always thinking, how do I get more traffic? The first component that people are always thinking about is traffic. And more traffic equals more sales. And traffic is kind of like the water in here. Well, this green juice. But traffic is only useful if the bottle is not leaking, which is the other components we're going to be talking later. Traffic is actually, what if I told you, is actually the least important because there's no point putting water in a bottle when the bottle's leaking. But yet most of the time, when it comes to growing and scaling a business, the question that most entrepreneurs and business owners are obsessed with is, how do I get more customers? How do I get more sales? How do I get more people to walk into my gym? How do I get more people to come to my practice? So this portion over here in the online world is where you'll be focusing on things like Facebook ads, Instagram, YouTube videos, making it keyword rich. This first component that is uncommon, that will enable you to have a competitive advantage over others, is actually going to surprise you, but this is the thing that we are working on, but it's actually SEO. Why SEO? Search engine optimization. Why get ranked on the search engines? And why is that uncommon? Here's why. If you take a look at traffic generation, when I first started out doing online marketing about 12 years ago, search engine optimization or SEO and the process of getting your site ranked on the search engines was a huge thing, like huge. Marketers would be selling courses on it. The demand for that type of information would be extremely high because SEO was a great way to get traffic. And then a few years later, something happened. Social media happened. Platforms like Facebook came along and then Instagram came along. And when ads opened up on these platforms, what did marketers do? Marketers who are holding the SEO ball dropped the ball and went to chase on the next shiny object, the next low-hanging fruit, which was Facebook and Instagram, which was the right move to do. However, we gotta understand something that happened. If you take a look at this traffic source, which is SEO, SEO, think of it kind of like a supply and demand chart. What is the demand? The demand, which is the demand for a specific keyword, which is the amount of people that's doing a search on Google for that specific keyword. Do you think over the last 10 years, do you think demand and the amount of people doing searches on Google fell? Do you think it stayed the same or do you think it increased? Right? I would argue that at the very least, the amount of searches on Google did not fall. If anything at all, there's more people going online and there's more searches on Google. So if anything at all, over the last 10 years, demand has actually increased. But at the same time, let's talk about the supply. What is the supply of this keyword? The supply is the amount of marketers that's putting in effort and focus and resources trying to rank their pages for these keywords, for these searches, right? That's the supply. The amount of pages and the amount of marketers that's putting in their time, money, focus, resources, trying to create content to rank on the search engines. Now, what do you think happened to supply? Do you think supply increased, stayed the same or fell? I would argue that because marketers today dropped the ball and went over to platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, so supply, if anything at all, has actually fell. So if you think about this analogy here, so demand, what has happened to demand? If it has increased over time, and at the same time, the amount of marketers, which is the supply, if it has fell, what do you think is going to happen to the value of this commodity? This basic economics, supply and demand. What do you think is going to happen to this commodity called SEO? It's going to increase. So this chart here is worth 6 figures. Okay, appreciate that. Let's look at that together for a while. What a beautiful chart. Demand and supply. But this is the first step. Okay, remember, this thing is about 3 uncommon ways to scale your business. If you only doubled any of these 3 things, you would 8x your business. Okay, so this second component, we'll type in 3 ways. This initial component of traffic, you need to focus on SEO if you want to have a competitive advantage. What about your second component? Okay, your second component is a component that most people do not think about, which is basically how much is an average customer worth to you. So I'm going to put in average customer value. Now, most of the time, people are just thinking about how can I get more new customers, more sales. But the second thing that people don't think about is how can I increase how much this existing same customer on average is worth to me. What is the next thing they need in your offers, in your value ladder? And the best way to do it is to think about what is the next problem that they face now that you just solved them that initial problem. So let's say I am teaching people how to speak and close through my book, Platform Closing. I'm asking myself the question, now that they just bought this book, what is the new set of problems that they will face as a direct result of me solving this problem of learning how to speak, sell, and close online and offline? The second problem would be, well, Peng Joon, I don't have the connections, I don't know the seminar organizers, I don't have an audience. So even if I knew how to speak, sell, and close, I don't know how I can best utilize it or leverage it. So I know that because that's the next problem they'll face, I know that my upsell or the next thing, my sales process, would be to show them how they can utilize this skill set on social media like Facebook, how to sell and close on Facebook. It could be an offer that shows them, look, now that you have just understood and learned the skill set on how to speak, sell, and close, the next thing you need to do is learn how to build an audience to speak, sell, and close to. Let me show you how to build and run a webinar and how to run webinars profitably, because that would be the next problem they face. So your first element, if you want to double your business, you could double the amount of traffic that you get, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, but if you want to be able to get an unfair advantage, SEO to me is the next big thing of the decade. Second one is how can you increase an average customer and how much it's worth. And the third thing, number 3, is basically to grow any business, you could double the amount of new customers you have, you could double how much they're worth. But number 3 is to think about how can you increase the frequency of how often they're coming back to you. But think about if you could double the frequency of how often an existing customer comes back, then you would double your business. Now, most of the time, gym owners, business people, entrepreneurs, they're not thinking about this part here. And the question I would like to ask you is this: if you could keep every single customer that you once had, how much do you think your business would be worth today? Because who do you think is easier to market to? Do you think it's easier to market to an existing customer or to a new customer? 100% over here, right? It's going to be way easier to sell an existing customer the next thing they need, especially if you treat them right and give them great value. So how can you get them to come back to your business more often? Many different ways. This is what social media would be for, to remind them that you exist. Your Instagram stories, where they can see behind the scenes to what it is that you do. Your YouTube videos, where they're constantly getting value from you. This could be, number 2, via email. Your email autoresponder series. Do you have a follow-up sequence so that when somebody goes into your sales process, there's an email sequence written out beforehand that automates building that relationship, giving them value, building trust, building credibility? Or could you increase the frequency of how often people are going back by using Facebook ads and retargeting them and running ads that says like, hey, I noticed that you came to website name but you didn't buy. Or I noticed that you visited my webinar but you didn't register. Did something happen? We don't run these webinars often. Make sure you click on this link to join us for our next one. That's retargeting. Getting your existing customers to come back to you. But can you see why this year, if you were to just double each of these departments, if you were to get twice your amount of traffic, and if you could increase how much an average customer is worth, and if you could increase the frequency of how often they came back, then you would 8x your business, right? 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That would be an 8x business. And that's literally, from a big picture perspective, what I look at every single year when it comes to growing my company and having this level of growth. It's not about just getting new customers, but these are the main 3 pillars, the main levers that you got to move in order to grow, scale, and take your business to a whole new level. Let me know in the comments below which of these 3 are you working on, did you like the most? And as always, make sure you like the video and hit on subscribe for future videos like this one.